Good evening, everyone. Zhangjiaji might seem far away from your lives. You might hear about it and think, that has nothing to do with me. Anyway, I am in Zhangjiaji. But when the person involved told me, it gave me goosebumps. Because the person in the story described it in great detail. Plus, this event is something my grandpa experienced when he was young. Xiaowang told me that he's never encountered anything strange. He said he's not very old yet. He's about 25 or 26, but when my grandpa was young, he encountered a scary thing. This thing, everyone in our village knows about it. Because my grandpa is just like me, he loves to tell stories. He would tell the strange things he'd encountered to the kids in the village. My grandpa told many stories, but there was one particular event that scared many of the kids in our village. No one dared to walk to the high, dirt road where my grandpa encountered the strange thing back then. This thing actually happened when my grandpa was 22 or 23. That year, my grandpa was in the next village. A friend of his was getting married. My grandpa probably went to his wedding and was busy for about 2 to 3 days. This village is actually not far from our village. But here in Zhangjiaji, don't let the short distance fool you. There isn't a proper road. In other words, for my grandpa to walk from our village to theirs, he had to cross 2 mountains. These 2 mountains made for a very difficult path. That night, after my grandpa had been busy with the wedding for 3 days, he was walking home on the mountain road. It was already after 9 p.m. This mountain road, according to my grandpa, he said, "I've walked this road my whole life, and I've never, ever encountered anything strange here. So that day, I was walking on the mountain road, and I didn't think anything would happen. But that night, something a little bit special did happen. Why? Because the temperature in Zhangjiaji dropped that night. I don't know if you've ever been in the south. It's different from the north. It might be sunny at noon, and you're wearing a t-shirt, but in the evening, among the mountains, the temperature can drop by about 10 degrees. So, on the day my grandpa attended the wedding, the weather was actually quite warm. But that day, the weather suddenly changed. My grandpa's clothes were too thin. He was walking on this mountain road on his way home, and he was shivering all over from the cold. My grandpa walked on the path, pushing hard to move forward. The weather kept getting colder and colder. Just as my grandpa felt he couldn't stand the cold anymore, he saw from a distance on the path, about 20 meters ahead, it looked like someone was there, warming themselves by a fire. "Hey," he thought as he saw it from afar, "this is great. There's someone lighting a fire on the side of the road. Plus, everyone living near this mountain path is a neighbor. No outsiders come here. So, everyone pretty much knows each other." At this point, Grandpa was very relaxed. He figured it must be someone from a neighboring village, or someone from his own village, resting by the roadside. He walked towards the firelight, but when he got close to the fire, Grandpa realized something was wrong. Because when he got closer and took a look, there were 3 people by the bonfire. Of these 3 people, 2 were standing on the side, and 1 was squatting by the fire. Let's not describe what the 3 of them looked like yet. Anyway, Grandpa had definitely never seen them before. Let's first talk about their clothes. Just their clothes were enough to scare Grandpa. Of the 3 people, the 2 who were standing, 1 was wearing clothes similar to an ancient official's uniform, the same type of clothes. The clothes were grayish, and there was a character written on the chest, but my grandpa was illiterate, so he didn't know what was written. The other person was wearing dark clothes, or maybe dark blue. He couldn't see clearly at night. There was also a character on his chest. The two of them just stood there. There was no expression on their faces. The strangest thing for Grandpa was, it was late at night, and the surroundings were pitch black. Suddenly, a stranger like Grandpa showed up. But these three people acted as if they hadn't seen Grandpa at all. Now, let's talk about the person squatting by the fire. This person was even more frightening. This person's face seemed to have been seriously injured, because there were traces of blood on his collar. Plus, this person kept his head down and covered his face. Hangzhou Bank. He really couldn't see where the injury was. But he clearly felt that this person was like a prisoner. He was being held there by the two people who were wearing clothes with characters on them. Xiao Wang's grandpa was not an ordinary person. There was nothing special about him. He was just bold. Otherwise, an ordinary person wouldn't walk the mountain path so late at night. Although he found the three of them strange, Grandpa still took the initiative to speak to them. As he spoke, he took out his tobacco from his bag. Grandpa used his hand to press the tobacco into his pipe. He casually opened his mouth and asked the three of them. Grandpa said, "Hey friends, you're not from our village, are you? What are you doing? What are you two doing with that person? Where are you taking them?" After Grandpa finished speaking, the two tall people who were standing glared at him. Their faces were still expressionless, as if their muscles were dead. And then, Grandpa looked at the two of them and felt like something was wrong, because there was hostility in their eyes. The Grandpa immediately said with a smile, "Oh, no, maybe I was being too nosy. What do you do? Which village are you from? Or are you from the county town?" Actually, the Grandpa's reaction was, he thought these two might be police or something, because this happened in the 1,960 seconds. In the 1,960 seconds, the country was already liberated, and China already had police. Since the Grandpa rarely left the mountains, he didn't know what the police wore. Let's look at this from another perspective. To be honest, the Grandpa was a little uneducated. China Agricultural Bank, but with his foolishness, China, he was still arguing with them. But these two were extremely unfriendly. The one squatting by the fire, that person was like he was admitting guilt. He kept squatting there and didn't make a sound. The Grandpa saw this. "You won't talk when I ask you. Fine, I won't bother with you." So he took his smoking pipe and went towards their fire. He was going to light it to have a few puffs to warm up. "I still have to hurry home later." But, as the Grandpa was lighting his pipe on the fire, he put his mouth to the pipe and sucked. The Grandpa realized something was wrong, because the tobacco he borrowed from the Zhang family lights up instantly. But no matter how much the Grandpa sucked on the fire, the tobacco just wouldn't light. "Hey, this is strange," the Grandpa thought. "What's going on? How come this tobacco won't light?" The Grandpa even specifically told us, "I brought my pipe back to see if it was wet and wouldn't light. But when I touched the tobacco in the pipe with my hand, it was as dry as could be. I tried to light it again. No matter how I tried to light it with the fire seemed to be useless. This line is empty in the original input, so it's a blank line here." That's when I found it so strange. I reached out to touch the flame. I wanted to see, but when my hand got close to the fire, The fire had no temperature at all. That's when the grandpa finally realized, oh no, I've run into something evil. At that moment, the grandpa thought, ever since I arrived and stood next to them talking, I felt there was something strange about the three of them. Now, I finally understand. It's possible that the fire I am seeing is fake. But after the grandpa found out, someone with a little experience wouldn't just turn and run. Why? Because if you run, isn't that an obvious sign? It means, I know what you three are. The grandpa decided, I'll continue to play dumb. I'll pretend I don't know if you're human or ghosts. I'll talk to you guys a bit more. And then later, when you let your guard down, I'll make an excuse to leave. I turned around and left. My grandfather was holding the tobacco pipe. He put on a face of indifference. He meant to tell them, if it doesn't light, it doesn't light. It's fine. Then, my grandfather continued, chatting with the two people standing there. He asked them where they were going, or where they came from. The two people still ignored him. My grandfather felt that the longer he stayed, the more boring it got. Plus, he already knew these three weren't right. He tactfully came up with an excuse. He said, I have to go home. Thank you. I just warmed up by your fire. I'll see you later. And he put away his pipe and turned around and left. These three people, when our old man walked away, maybe about 5 or 6 meters, his footsteps started to quicken. He was actually very scared inside. He was just pretending before. My grandfather said that at the time, he was already terrified. He quickened his pace. I took small, quick steps forward. I kept walking forward. After going 10 or 20 meters, I dared to look back. But when I looked back, oh my God, the bonfire and the three people standing by it were gone. Oh, I got really scared at that moment. That means what I just saw? Those three people, they didn't exist. My heart was in my throat. I didn't care how cold I was anymore. I started to jog. I ran toward the village. I ran back to the village in the dark. When I got back to the village that night, I went straight into bed. I was so scared, I kept thinking about the three people I'd seen. At this point, all sorts of possibilities came to mind. I thought, first, these were probably people from the underworld, and I happened to stumble upon them. Another possibility is that these were the lonely ghosts from the surrounding villages. I don't know what happened, but I saw them in the middle of the night. Anyway, my mind was running wild, thinking of many possibilities. But my grandfather was a big talker. He loved talking about these things. The next day, and he spread the story of his encounter last night all over the village. The villagers had many opinions. Some of the more enthusiastic ones, even more gossipy than my grandfather, believed that what he ran into last night was the underworld coming to claim a soul. They started asking around in neighboring villages. What did they ask? They asked which family in the area had a death. Because many people believed that the person Grandpa saw crouching by the fire last night was probably someone who had just died. And it turned out, after some friends from the neighboring village looked into it, the answer really didn't disappoint anyone. Not far from Grandpa's village, about 10 miles away, a person in that village really died the night before. This person died a violent death. It seems it wasn't a natural death. They say he went to a farther village to gamble. While gambling, and because he'd been unlucky, he owed a lot of gambling debts to that small illegal casino. When he was leaving that night, he might have tried to escape. Unexpectedly, the owner of that small casino from the other village and his men caught up to him. After they caught him, they were in the mountains, and there was no one around. And this guy wouldn't back down. He kept fighting back. So they decided to go all the way. With a hot head, the casino owner and a few of his men beat the guy to death. They say he died a terrible death. His face was covered in blood from the beating. When they finally found him, it was already 5 or 6 days later. He was found in the mountains. Now, don't stop listening here. You're probably wondering, I know where you're at. You're wondering if there were casinos in the Zhangjiaji Mountains in the 60 seconds. Well, the casino I am talking about is just a small gambling ring, run by a few local drifters and layabouts in the neighboring village. It's not just about the 60 seconds. There were places like this in the countryside since the 30 seconds. You can ask the old people in your family. This is nothing new. Actually, with that said, our story is pretty much over. Because the villagers at the time, including Grandpa, always believed that the 3 people he saw that night must have been coming to escort that gambler from the neighboring village. And after Grandpa described in detail the appearance of the 2 people who were escorting the guy, the one we mentioned earlier, who was wearing a shirt with words on it, the villagers were all in agreement. They thought what Grandpa met was probably the black and white guards of impermanence. Hello, friends. The story we're telling tonight is provided by a friend from Anyang, Henan, named Liang Chen Meijing. Meijing's story happened when he was in the 3rd year of junior high. In the 3rd year of junior high, one of Meijing's really good friends, who was also his childhood friend and his neighbor, had something good happen in his family. What was the good thing? His dad bought a minivan. In Meijing's social circle at the time, it was a pretty big deal for a family to have a car, so all his classmates were quite envious. Since they bought the minivan, Meijing's friend's dad, they got a car and wanted their son to practice driving. He would need a driver's license anyway, but they never expected their son was a natural driver. After getting in the car, he drove, as well as his father. Especially with the gear shift and clutch, the kid handled it very well. So all of a sudden, the kid became a big deal at school. Even without a license, he often drove to his friends' houses, hanging out at their homes, but he didn't go far. Plus, traffic laws were not as strict back in the day. He wouldn't get caught for something like this. With his friend's admiration, he became more and more arrogant. He often took his dad's car for a spin. Of course, he mostly stayed in the neighborhood, but he got more and more skilled over time. Even though he was young, he was a natural driver, so the kid became more confident. He often drove his friends to faraway places. And that's when the danger came. This is where the danger came. Especially the parents of the friends who lived near him told their kids not to hang out with this kid. Of course, it was okay to hang out, just not to ride in his car. Especially Meijing's family. Meijing's father had warned Meijing repeatedly. I am telling you, you are not allowed to ride in his car. He doesn't have a license. It would be a lot of trouble if something happened. Meijing was afraid of her father, so she was very obedient, but the other kids didn't listen. They often went out with their friend in his car. A few months later, he became more and more familiar with the car. One night, at about 8 p.m., he called Mei Jing's house. Mei Jing answered the phone. "Hello? What are you doing?" "Hey, let's go. I'll pick you up. Let's go have some fun." Mei Jing heard that and looked at her parents behind her. She said in a low voice, "My parents are home. I can't go. My dad won't let me ride in your car. He said we don't have a license, so we can't drive." His friend got mad when he heard that. "You guys look down on me, don't you? I am telling you, someone with a license might not drive as well as me. I can almost drift now." But none of that mattered. Mei Jing definitely couldn't go out tonight. So Mei Jing hung up the phone. Then the kid called other friends. Luckily, he called everyone, but their parents wouldn't let them go out. So he had no other choice. He found another friend to go with him. Before they left, he called Mei Jing's home again. He meant to give her one last chance. "Did you want to go? I'll take you for a ride, and I'll buy you barbecue." But Mei Jing could only tell him, "I am not going." And at the end, she even gave him a special piece of advice. "Don't go. It's so late, right? And you don't have a driver's license. What if you get caught? Isn't that a problem?" But Mei Jing and her good friend never expected this call would be the last time they spoke. Because after he drove out that night, something happened. How did it happen? After her friend drove off, it was almost 10 p.m. Suddenly, the phone at Mei Jing's house rang. At the time, Mei Jing's dad answered the phone. Mei Jing was lying in bed in her room, about to go to sleep, but she heard her dad talking on the phone outside, and his voice seemed to be about her. Mei Jing immediately paid attention. She heard her dad say, "Huh? Really? What happened? Is it really serious?" "Oh, it's nothing. He wasn't in the car. He didn't go out with his friend." "What's up with him? His friend called him just now." "I didn't let him go." "How badly was he hit?" "Huh? What? What? Oh my. Oh, thank goodness I didn't let him go." When Mei Jing heard this, the hair on her arm stood up. She slowly walked out of her room and walked outside. "Dad? What's wrong?" Then her dad, still on the phone, gestured to Mei Jing. Your third uncle, your third uncle." Then Mei Jing asked again, "What's wrong with my third uncle?" "Nothing's wrong with your third uncle. Your classmate was hit and killed." What? Mei Jing's hair stood on end when she heard that. "Dad, who? Which classmate?" "Which classmate do you think? The one who just asked you to go driving?" Mei Jing suddenly stood rooted to the spot, speechless. Afterward, her dad chatted with her third uncle on the phone for a bit, then hung up. After he hung up, Mei Jing's mom, who had been snoring, also came out. "What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened?" Then her dad started to tell them the whole story of what had just happened. It turned out her third uncle had fallen asleep around 9:30 when he woke up. He heard a sound of brakes downstairs. And then there was the sound of tires screeching. And then a second later, asterisk bang, asterisk, there was a huge crash. Mei Jing's third uncle knew something had happened. He immediately ran to the window to look. And what he saw, a large truck appeared. It completely flattened a van. You ask to what extent, I'll tell you. The truck flipped on its side. The truck was carrying cargo, and it completely crushed the van. The van had become a complete pancake. When third uncle saw this, "Oh my God, what happened? Such a big accident happened." Plus, he also liked to watch the excitement.